All right, Ryan. So we received news. It was actually late last night. Paige Bueckers, and that's what we're going to go over today. Paige Bueckers will return for the 2023-24 season
Right.
after she recovers from her injury. I think that this was pretty obvious. I don't think she will bypass the WNBA draft. I think a lot of people already saw this coming. I know I did. I don't know about you. You and I discussed it just briefly last night. I'm not too sure if you see any big shockers here. The What I take out of this, she tore ACL August 1st. Obviously, she will miss this season. With that said, I can't imagine why she would have went into the WNBA draft anyway. Let's just put it this way: we already know what she's capable of doing on the floor. Okay, I don't know if anyone else disagrees, including you. Tell me. I don't have to see Paige Bueckers anymore on TV or in person to for her to prove to me or especially anyone else what she can do in basketball. We already know what she's capable of doing. With that said, since this is not her first big injury, but her second, I think it's just a question how she responds and is she the same player coming back out on the court for 23, 24 season, because that will prove to a lot of WNBA executives during the draft season if she is capable of making it to the next level.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, I don't really think this news was a surprise to anybody. I think we all kind of expected her to return to UConn the following season after this season is over, especially because of her injury. Now, I think, like we were discussing last night on the phone, if she would have been healthy coming into this season and completed the whole season, and perhaps UConn goes on to win the national championship with Paige Bueckers fully healthy, then I think it probably would have been something that she would have discussed more with her team or agent or just by herself, a question that she had to ask herself if she was going into the WNBA draft or if she was going to return for the 2023 season. But now, with her getting injured again and tearing her ACL, especially in the same leg, like you said, it becomes a
Yeah.
question of whether she can fully recover from this, because like we saw last season, I think many people have come to believe that she probably wasn't 100% healthy when she was playing, when she came back and played in March Madness. But even though she was kind of the sole reason at some points during March Madness that UConn even got back to or got to the championship game in the first place. But like you were saying as well, Paige Bueckers doesn't really need to prove herself anymore to
No.
anybody. We all
Mm.
know what she's capable of. We all know the talent that she has. She's a one of a kind player. But I mean, she hasn't really played up to the expectations, I would say, ever since that first injury from last season, because her freshman year she came in and pretty much shocked the world. She had high expectations. We all know she was a very good player coming out of high school, but the way she just lit the college basketball world on fire as a freshman, and then of course we were all expecting big things, and then now two injuries have happened, and it's kind of the question of whether she can recover fully and if she'll ever be able to get back to that level that she was at from her freshman year.
Yeah. So you said, Phil, what are the details? And I'm like, well, Ryan, the details are if she, I guess basically she's eligible for 3 more years. So while she didn't commit to the 5th year, she is eligible for 3 more seasons in college basketball. So we could get a lot of Paige Bueckers action, or we could get not a lot, maybe 1 year, and then that's it. So I think that even makes it more fun, if you ask me. You're not, it's because again, I know, strictly Husky fans, straight up Husky, UConn Husky, diehard Husky fans, they're not thinking about Paige Bueckers in the WNBA. Okay. But you and I know we discuss it over and over and we say it over and over. You and I are huge fans of not only the UConn Huskies, but Paige Bueckers, as a player on the court. So with that said, I think it's exciting for us, in the months, years to come, because you don't know if you're going to wake up and she's putting on that WNBA jersey, or is she going to put that UConn Husky jersey on for one more year? You don't know.
Yeah, and it's definitely really exciting that we get to look into the future and kind of try to predict that if she will be in the WNBA again. And of course, I think we kind of all expect her to be in the WNBA because she obviously has the talent. But I mean, like I said before, I think it's just whether the question of if she gets back to that level and if she gets injured again for a third time. And I hope and pray that doesn't happen again. But I think if it does, I really don't know where she would go from there, depending on how many years she stays in college, and there's just a lot of questions. But hopefully she can come back next season. Now we for sure all get to look forward to her coming back for the 2023 season, and hopefully she stays injury free and is able to lead the Huskies again and play for UConn, and hopefully get them back to another national championship.
I like her comment. She says she just really wants to be at 110% healthy before she ever plays basketball again. And that's Paige Bueckers all around, right? I mean,
Yeah.
she wants to think about making everyone else around her better. It's not, yeah, of course she has to be healthy to put on a show like we all like to see, but I think that's important when she says that. Think about what she's saying. She's not thinking about her actually literally being 110%, but also the communication, making others around her better, the rebounds, the assist, all right, the blocks. It's a team effort. And man, when you're at 110%, especially in basketball, you're not putting the team on your back necessarily by yourself, even though she does sometimes. But you're also connecting with the other players on the court, especially the newer rookies coming in. And I literally believe we went over this again. I think she teaches even the coaches sitting, even from the visiting teams, the visiting coaches. I think the players and the coaches learned from her literally during game action.
Yeah, and if she's not at 110%, obviously, in my opinion, she can't only, improve her play as well, but she can't improve their teammates around. It just makes it everything that much harder if she's not up to par, and that goes for mentally as well, not just physically, but making sure her mind's in the right place to play
Yeah.
basketball and get to the level that she was at before. But yeah, I mean, it's pretty obvious when you watch Paige Becker. She's not only trying to improve her game, but she's trying to improve the game of all of her teammates and everybody she plays around. Even if she's on the floor or on the sidelines during practice, during warmups. I mean, it's just all the time, constantly trying to make her game better, improve her play, and improve everybody around her, and trying to get the team to be able to win the game. And what's most important to her, not scoring all these points and getting assists and all that stuff is great. But I think the most important thing to her is getting the UConn Huskies a win, and just doing everything that she can to make that happen.
How about some comments, Ryan? Iva goes, I'm excited for Dorka. She needs to play better defense, but on the other end, she is great. Can post, can shoot mid range, and also knock down a three, no matter who the opponent is. Championships is here. I am calling it.
Yeah, and I think even without Paige Beckers as well, I still believe that the UConn Huskies can win a national championship. It just obviously gets a little bit harder, but I definitely think they still have the talent. They still have the players to do it. It's just the idea of kind of everybody coming together, doing their part, doing their role, and one of those players that's going to have to do that and really step up, like we mentioned before, is going to be Dorka Juhas. We're all expecting great things from Dorka again. She had a great season last year, and I think this year she can even have a better season. So if it's going to be one player to step up, I think it's going to be Dorka.
Let's go and get into some big comments here. How about that? Because I know Ryan loves to break down these comments. That's your favorite thing on this show. Um, Alan Lee, gents, I feel like you based too much on what happened in the past. Why did UConn have such a tough season? Because Paige went down. Or I'll sum it up in one word: injuries. That's going to happen again. Some big name players you're assuming to play every game will be out for other teams, just like it hit UConn. I don't wish it on anyone, but that's going to happen. That said, each team stepping on the court this season will be different in some way from last season. I haven't seen newbie Lauren Betts, Stanford, play, but Kiki Rice, UCLA, is a beast. But I think UConn has the best recruiting class of 2022. Couple that with a healthy Caroline, a fearless and non-hesitant AZ Fudd, lockdown D, X Factor Dorka, potent Lou Lopez, and you have yourself a way above the UConn norm team taking the floor in November. That's exciting. Just watch. Okay, all right, Ryan, before you say anything, let's go back to them days where you and I talk about how do teams carry the weight. If you're assuming, if your favorite, whether it's ESPN app, I don't care what it is. If you're a favorite to win a championship, national title, world champions, whatever, we talked about that already. If you have the best player in the sport, other teams are out to hunt you down, and usually other teams win. Okay. So in this case, is it dangerous? Yes, they had the best recruiting class of 2022. I'll agree with that. How many other teams are out there hunting this team down? Because it's a lot of sweet talk going on around UConn.
Yeah, and that's why I said it in the last episode when we were predicting and going over all the games in the non-conference schedule. I said for a lot of them, all these teams are out to get revenge on UConn, because a lot of the teams, a lot of the history, UConn is undefeated against all those teams. So all the teams, whether it's at UConn Stadium or at the opponent's stadium, they're all out to beat UConn. Everybody wants to beat the best team, and the best team being UConn, even though South Carolina's the defending champs and UConn hasn't won a championship in a while. It's all the success that UConn's had in the past, all the success that Geno's brung to the program. But in UConn, I agree with that as well. The best recruiting class, and I mean, not just this year as well. They usually always have the best recruiting class, and that's why they continue to be so good every single year. Gino is a great coach, and they have great scouts and great assistant coaches throughout the years as well. But yeah, I mean, they recruit so much talent into UConn, and they're so good every year. And it's so hard to predict injuries as well, and you know, not just UConn, for any other team. And that's why it's so hard to predict games, because you don't know what the starting lineups are going to be, what players are going to be out, maybe the coach is even out. You just can't really predict the future. So that's why it's so hard to predict these games.
Think about how we talk, though, and Ryan and I are the first ones to admit it. Think about how we talk. Okay, we're talking about injuries all of a sudden. You know, Alan Lee talks about injuries. Think about a fully healthy roster heading into a national championship game. Okay, but you still lose. You have the top recruiting class. You have the best player in the world in Paige Bueckers in college basketball. What are you going to talk about then? You're going to talk about what happens in the game. Oh my gosh, they did this wrong. Ryan, they did that wrong. They didn't get enough blocks. They didn't get enough steals. Ryan, it's a rotating clock. It never stops.
Yeah, and obviously fully healthy minus Dorka Juhas last year. But yeah, I mean, you're going to talk about when you have a fully healthy roster, like you said, about what happens during the game. So, I mean, that's what I expect from this season. We go over all these recaps. The morning after the game, we're going to talk about what happens during the game.
It's interesting because I told you, if your team is fully healthy, you know, just take Ryan's list. Ryan Renner's list. Okay. Top recruiting class. That's a check mark on Ryan's list. Paige, even though Paige Bueckers is not healthy this season, let's skip the next season. I know you don't want to. A lot of people don't want to. We have a full season to get through, but a fully healthy Paige Bueckers, let's just say, okay, if you still lose ball games, What's the next topic on the list to talk about?
Yeah, then you're gonna start talking about the players and what what Gino can do
Coaches,
differently.
coaches.
That yeah, the minutes the players are getting. It's just everything factors into
Yep.
something different.
Mhm. How about Jason D'Amico? He's a regular on this channel. We appreciate him a lot for coming through. I won't even dare to speak of wins and losses until I see them play a few games. Just too many variables. Peace.
Yeah, and that's what we were just talking about, all the variables that play into everything, and that's why I said it. It's so hard to predict, but it is fun to go over the schedule before the season starts and talk about both teams and just kind of get ready and know what to expect, even though we don't know what the rosters are going to look like in terms of the starting lineups and what minutes the different players are going to get. But it is fun to kind of predict. What's going to happen in the future and see if we are right on some of our predictions.
Tom Monansky. Sorry if I'm saying the last name wrong. Monansky. You guys need to study up on these teams.
Yeah.
Well, we love to study UConn women's basketball, but Ryan, when you have the time to study what is it, like over 100 teams in college basketball, when you have the time to study all 100 plus, you let me know, Ryan.
Yeah, and there's so many new recruits that come for every team during the off season, and so many other players that enter the transfer portal. New coaches getting moved around every year, new head coaches, and also players that go into the WNBA draft, or even those that leave the school and don't make it into the WNBA. So there's so many things each and every year that changes with every single team.
William Nabel. William Nabel. He goes, schedule came out a month ago.
Yeah, well, I mean, it did, but see,
This is the most I've seen Ryan laugh during the comment section in a while.
I mean, I still love all the comments, but
Yeah.
I think we do know that it did come out a month ago, and we even I mean, we had the episode on Cootstown, had the episode on Florida State, had the episode on Maryland. So we were well, and we also talked about the I forget what tournament it was, but it's the one with Iowa. The UConn is playing
Well,
as well,
you
and
told me that's a non-conference schedule, is what you said.
yeah, and we were aware of all the different teams being announced, but we just wanted to kind of make sure that it was right because we kept waiting for ESPN, but we had to go on the UConn Huskies website to make sure all the games were in order and all the dates were correct as well.
North Carolina State lost all 5 starters. Oh, okay. Westmore. It's no wonder why I read off the names on the roster and none of them sounded familiar. North Carolina State lost all 5 starters. Westmore has bench from last year. Boyd, Johnson, and Hobby returning. Tough road ahead for West with incoming grad students and a prayer.
Yeah, and I'd imagine even though, all 5 players left off of NC State, I'd still imagine they're going to be pretty good this year because it seems like they always are. They're a top program. Their head coach is obviously great. So I'm sure he'll have his girls playing and ready when the season starts, and I'm sure they'll be very, very motivated for when they play UConn, especially what happened last year. Even though most of the players may not have played in that game, I'm sure they'll be ready for the test.
I'll leave you with 2 more, Ryan. These 2 are interesting, especially this one, because we talked about how this team was a pain for UConn in the conference, and usually UConn rolls through their conference.
Yeah.
Michael Scholler goes, thanks, Michael, for coming through. He says Texas added Sonya Morris from DePaul to go with one of the best returning classes in the country. Or excuse me, this is Texas. All right, this is Texas, not DePaul. I was reading the comment wrong. So Texas added Sonya Morris from DePaul to go with one of the best returning classes in the country. Their guards can and will lead them to a possible shot at the title. Well, DePaul really played some good basketball, didn't they? I believe it was one team in the conference, Ryan, that gave UConn a lot of issues last season. But if it was DePaul, well, there goes that shot at DePaul getting any chance at UConn, because Texas added Sonya Morris. And now, so what he's saying, Texas has a real shot at the title. That's interesting.
Yeah, and I kind of figured that Texas would be up there again because, like I mentioned in the last episode, they've been good for the past 2 years. So I kind of expected them to be good yet again this year, and I'm sure they'll be in the top 10 for most of the season, or around that 10 spot in the AP poll. And I'm sure that'll be a really close game, UConn and Texas. That should be fun to watch. And I believe Villanova was the team that gave UConn the most trouble last season. I know Caroline Ducharme hit a layup buzzer beater to beat Villanova last season, and I believe Villanova and DePaul also made March Madness last season. So I'm sure, obviously, all the in-conference teams that are going to play UConn are going to be motivated because UConn always beats up on them every single year. But there were a couple different teams last year that gave UConn some trouble. So I'm sure Villanova, DePaul, maybe Marquette as well. They had a couple of good games last year. I'm sure there'll be a couple surprise teams in the conference that give UConn a couple of good games.
And last but not least is Kenneth Robinson. Great show as always, fellas. Definitely going to be an interesting season for UConn, more so than previous seasons. That's for sure.
Yeah, and the Paige Bueckers injury kind of speaks to a little bit of that, and also Caroline Ducharme, Dorka Juhas coming off an injury, and so there's a lot of different variables heading into the season. Always Paige Bueckers already out, couple players coming off injuries, a couple transfers coming in there. That's very exciting. A couple new recruits also coming into the school, but it will be a very excited season. A very exciting season. I know we can't wait. Still got about 2 months until the season kicks off, but I can't wait to see the girls back in action.
Yeah, it's very unfortunate with summer coming to an end, but like we have said over and over, November is coming quicker and quicker, and we get to actually talk about UConn women's basketball again very soon. And you know what, Ryan? How about this? The miracle is not that we do the work, but that we are happy to do it. And I know we're always happy to talk about UConn women's basketball. And Ryan, it's time to put the pool covers back on the swimming pools. That's it, bud. It's Phil and Rye on Listen Up. Happy Labor Day.